Barry Eaton here, and welcome to Radio Out There. A couple of very special people on my program this week, and we all learn a lot from their experiences. Bill Bennett and Jennifer Cluff, Australian filmmakers who have just come back from a long tour around the world promoting their wonderful film, The Way, My Way, the story of the Camino and their adventures and how it has changed their lives and many other people's lives. And in this day and age of, well, shall we say, strange times, I think a lot of us are out there wanting to know just how we might make some changes to ourselves and the world around us. Bill and Jennifer, absolutely wonderful to see you. I mean, I've been following you all around the world for the last several months, and here you are back in Australia after my way to the way my way, I should say. I'm all over the place. I don't know what way it is. Anyway, you're both back, and lovely to see you.
Oh, thank you, Barry. We're really happy to be back.
And to see you as well.
Yes, to see you looking so well. It's fantastic.
Yeah, incredibly well.
Well, we all have our days, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
So how long were you away? Because you left here to obviously promote that wonderful film, The Way, My Way, and you have travelled every day. I looked on the Facebook page, and there you were somewhere different.
Yeah,
we were away exactly to the day 4 months. We left on the 28th and we're back on the 28th. We went to America, Canada, Budapest,
various cities in Germany.
We went all over Germany because the film was released there. We then went to the UK and went to England, Wales, and Scotland. Then we came back to Canada, and then we went to Malta.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, I wonder how many people actually think, well, once a film's out, that's it, go on something else. I mean, is it common after the release of a film in Australia, New Zealand, and worldwide, that the director, producer head off and promote it all around the world for 4 months? I mean, is that normal?
No, it's actually not, Barry. And it actually broadens out into a much larger question and much larger discussion, in fact. One of the reasons that we're able to do this is that we are producers of the film. And so we have a very real financial interest in this film doing well.
Yeah.
Now, the way most films are financed in Australia, producers and directors get their fee and they live off their fee. So they don't have any personal interest in the film necessarily doing well and making money because they're so far down the food chain in terms of the recoupment schedule that it's highly unlikely, unless the film is a massive, huge breakout hit, say a Baz Luhrmann film or something like that. But 99% of the Australian films don't do that. So what happens is that Australian producers and directors and filmmakers, they get their fee and then they quickly try and get onto another project so they can get another fee.
Cool.
Whereas we have financed this film in such a way that we share in the profits of the film alongside the investors. So we have taken as much risk as the investors in making this film. And so there are two factors here. One is that, we love the opportunity of going out and meeting people who have responded to the film, Camino people and non-Camino people. And there's nothing gives us more pleasure than actually standing up at the end of the movie in a packed auditorium and answering questions. And then afterwards, when the Q&A is over, we're often mobbed by people, saying,
You
look,
are.
yeah, too. And Jennifer, by the way, in Q&A is way better than me. Way better than me.
No, but there's something else that's happening because people will not now go to the cinema unless they believe they're going to have a really good experience,
An
Fair
event.
enough, fair enough.
an event.
Mm.
So we provide the event.
Hmm.
So we go and we introduce the film. We meet sometimes people beforehand. They don't have, we had one audience that didn't even know what film they were going to see. A film society that didn't tell them ahead what film they were going to see.
Good heavens.
In Long Island in New York.
Yes,
And interestingly, this film society had a whole lot of Oscar nominees in it, Academy members, like really serious film people.
Mm.
and the idea of an event is, or an experience, is really going to be a part of how we save cinema going forward.
Yeah, that's for sure. Because the cinemas are all too often empty. We went to see the latest Mission Impossible film recently, and I think there were about 10 of us in the audience.
Oh no, there
I
should be
know.
more for Mission Impossible.
Yeah, it
For
was
a
a
film like
dreadful
that,
film
you'd
anyway.
think. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very, very true, Barry, because, in our, particularly in America, we did, I think, 50 screenings in 54 days.
That's
And,
a lot.
so we were pretty much every day we were hopping to another city or a town to do a screening. And most of these screenings were in AMC multiplexes. And we would walk into the multiplex, and our film, which was often sold out, was the only film that had people in attendance.
Really?
The rest of the multiplex was, had tumbleweeds
Yes.
rolling down the aisle.
Well,
Yes.
that's what happens with streaming, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's actually, you're absolutely right. I think there was a perfect storm of events that happened, and COVID was the trigger point to that.
Mm,
One of
mm.
the other factors is that technology is such now that for a relatively small price, you can get a large screen TV with a home cinema sound outfit,
Yeah.
that gives you a very good approximation to the cinema experience.
Mm.
But all of that said, our audience likes to go to the cinema. They like to go in groups, and there's something wonderful about being in a packed cinema. And most of our screenings were packed.
Mm. Mm.
Our largest was 650 people.
That's wonderful. What are the age group that's coming along? Are they older people or is it varied?
Principally older, yeah.
Principally older, but surprisingly, there were teenagers. But our average audience member would be 40 plus.
Mm.
And they're not being catered for, especially 50 plus with normal cinema at the moment. They're not interested in noisy things like Mission Impossible because they are very noisy.
They are.
They have problems with their hearing when they go and see the standard fare that is in the multiplex.
Mm.
In Australia, I heard people come out and say, oh, so fantastic to be able to hear a film,
Mm.
meaning our film,
Yeah.
because they can't hear the noisy big
Yeah.
Hollywood films. So they're feeling that they're not being catered for.
Mm.
And it's true, they're not. They're simply, maybe one or two films a year that cater for an audience 45 plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
that's the problem.
so that was one of the many lessons we've learnt through.
Mm. Mm.
It wasn't our intention to do that, but one of the many lessons we've learnt through the process.
Now, with all those film premieres and all that tripping around, you must be exhausted. I mean, day in, day out, you were in the cinema at night and off the next morning somewhere else. I mean, how have you recovered?
It actually was surprisingly okay. We were very disciplined with our time. We didn't socialize unless we absolutely had to.
Yeah, yeah.
We I've got an Apple Watch, and it's got a sleep app on it, and actually it was telling me that I was getting more sleep while we were away on this tour than I was the same period of time last year. So that was very, very strange.
Very
I think
unusual.
one of the things is, people say, well, it's always difficult going to sleep in a new hotel.
And in an aircraft while he's getting there.
There's that as well, you know,
Mm.
but we adapted pretty well.
After a while, you walk into your hotel room, you go, yes, there's a bed. Oh, yeah, there's the bathroom. And you care about nothing else. And
Except where the power plugs are.
no, even that didn't bother me. Bill cared about the size of the TV. But beyond that, it's really simple. Room, shut the door. And the shutting of the door was very important because then we had a little moment to ourselves. But often that moment might only be 12 minutes. Like we've got an Uber in 12 minutes.
Yeah,
Flip on something a bit more presentable, get in the Uber, hope the Uber knows exactly where we have to go because we don't know, and turn up at a cinema and walk in and go, right, we're the producers of The Way My Way, and hope somebody knows what that means in the
What it
cinema.
means.
Yeah, and they did most of the time.
Yeah. So you must have had some, shall I say, adventures along the way.
Well, most of the adventures would happen when they didn't know. We
Oh,
spent
I was
our
thinking about that
time
for a moment.
in cinemas, on the way to cinemas,
Yeah.
on the way back from cinemas. Adventures would normally be us hearing other people's adventures. There's a lady in Frankfurt right now. Oh, she's not. She's somewhere in Germany heading to the border of France, I assume. She's, in her 60s with a stroller and a little dog and camping equipment. And she's on the Camino from her front door in Frankfurt, heading to Spain. And she was telling me about all her plans and what she was going to do. I mean, that was my adventure. That was the closest we got. We had to keep everything very, very tight. We always had good weather because Bill always has good weather wherever we go. Our flights were pretty much always on time.
We traveled light.
We traveled very light. Everything as far as logistics ran smoothly. So our adventures were listening to other people's adventures.
Yeah, fair enough.
And the people in Germany in particular, the number of people who've just walked out their front door and headed to Spain is phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, that's it, isn't it? The Camino has that magic in various parts of the world that links people together. And it certainly is the magic that you harnessed. You wrote about Bill. You made a wonderful film about it. And the Camino itself is more than just walking from A to B to C to C and so on. It is a life-changing event. Is that right?
Oh, very much so, Barry. And but the thing about it is that when I first undertook the Camino, I had no idea that any of this was going to happen. I had no idea that it was going to change my life in the fundamental way that it has. And as you know, I didn't want to make this film. I didn't think that there was a film in my story. I wrote the book shortly after I came back. I came back in May. The book was published in September of 2013. And I wrote the book principally to kind of figure out why I had done the walk. I self-published because I didn't think there would be any publisher interested in it. And I self-published in part because it was a book for me rather than for anyone else. And certainly the prospect of doing a film never entered my head. I didn't think that there was a film in the material at all. And it was only because of Richard Becker, a very esteemed and now retired film distributor who read the book, who said, no, there's actually a film in this. If you can capture the essence of the book on film, then you've got a film that's going to appeal to a lot of people. And I never saw it. And one of the reasons I never saw it was this, and that is that what I did wasn't in any way unusual or extraordinary. People walk from A to B, 800 kilometers, from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in France to Santiago. They do it every day. Hundreds of people do it every day. I didn't do anything especially different or in any way. I mean, there are people who do far longer walks and do walks with much greater difficulty and handicaps than I had. I had a bad knee. Maybe the thing that separated me from other people is that over 40, nearly 50 years, I have developed a skill of being able to communicate. And what I chose to do was not to proselytize at all, was to only document my own inner feelings. And like I say, I didn't think that was anything special. But what I've come to realize now, after all this period of time, it's been a little bit over 12 months now since the film has been released. What I've come to realize is that it is that ordinariness of my experience that is appealing to people, perversely, because what people are interested in is the experience, not necessarily a special experience, but an ordinary experience. And what I did is I documented an ordinary experience. And that, in a very strange way, is what has made it so popular.
Yeah, fair enough. Jennifer, as you, not only are the producer, but also obviously you and Bill are married, how much has Bill changed because of this? Have you seen him grow? Have you seen him develop? Have you seen him embrace everything? What is your perspective?
I'm having a bit of a blank on this because this is one that often comes up in the Q&As. If the Q&A is going along, people start to want to know this. And I have a really good answer, but I have forgotten it. So I'm going to now, with a little bit of a couple of weeks not having to answer that question, I'm going to say that, one, he was the least likely to ever walk a Camino. And that because he was a very needy person with 3 assistants and a whole range of he 3-star to 5-star accommodation, 5-star preferably, all of those things. I could never imagine him sleeping in a bunk room with 8 to 100 people. No. I could not see that. So I always thought he wouldn't do it, but he did do it. And because of those experiences he had, he just fundamentally changed in what his needs were. He simplified his life. He became what I would call a more average person. And that's, a lot of the arrogance was knocked off him. And that arrogance is only protection, right?
Well, I like Bill's reaction to that one, the arrogance bit.
So it's protection. You're protecting yourself with that.
Of course.
And he didn't need that protection anymore. And the thing that he was terrified most of before he left was people. He always wanted to, he would always ask, what happens if somebody comes and talks to me? And I would say, but you would talk back to them. He says, no, I want to do this on my own. I don't want people talking to me. And that was really big concern to him. But of course, the magic of The Way, My Way is that it features the people who did talk to him, who have become his best friends. And they're in the film. And that embrace, his embrace of people from around the world who have nothing to do with filmmaking, nothing to do with journalism. They do all sorts of things, and that I'm speechless at how that change has brought so much richness into his life, and then of course into mine, because they're now my friends as well. And that fundamental able to reach out to other people across the planet, across Australia, and to be able to say, these are my friends.
That's wonderful.
And they have nothing to do with our work. It's just, they are our friends.
Yeah. I guess that's the trouble. When you work in film, radio, TV, like we are, we tend to specialise and have friends in those same areas because we understand them and hopefully they understand us. But when you move beyond, then it opens up a whole new world.
Whole new world. And it's as if time hasn't passed from when you last saw them. So we might have seen Ivan and Giovanna 2 years ago. We saw them before we left our last night in Malta. We had dinner with them. It's as if no time has passed.
Wow.
That I think is one of the ways you can assess whether this is a deep soul friendship that probably speaks of so much more than we can understand.
Yeah.
All right, I'll tell you something. I don't believe that walking 800 kilometers can change your life. I believe that walking 800 kilometers can open up the potential for you to change your life. And it's two different things. Because if you are receptive to it, and you've got to be receptive to it, if you are receptive to the lessons that the Camino can teach you, then the next step in that progression of transformation happens after the Camino.
Yeah.
It happens when you come back and you're faced with those everyday dilemmas and challenges and so forth that spring up, which trigger you. And so it requires a conscious effort to say, no, I'm actually going to meet this challenge as a pilgrim, not as the Bill Bennett that I was before I walked the Camino. And so the real work, if you like, in transformation happens after the Camino. The Camino opens the door to the potential to change, is what I believe.
Now, when you speak to people along the way, intentionally or otherwise, do you find they go looking for change, or are they just want an adventure, an experience, something to talk about? Is there anything in common about that changing your life?
Of course, it's different for different people, but the one thing that I've discovered is that some people can set off with a certain intention in walking the Camino. Maybe it's just to spend time with their son or spouse or whatever, or it's a bucket list thing, or it's a physical challenge. And by the time they get to Santiago, that intention has changed fundamentally. Somebody can start off not believing that they're going to have any kind of transformative experience. But during that 31, 32, up to 40 days of walking, they're faced with physical challenges, with, the walk opens up catacombs, in their subconscious that in their deeper sense of being that they hadn't necessarily wanted open. It's different for different people, but I think that anybody who walks the full Camino, not necessarily the shorter versions, but the full Camino, being the Camino Frances, they can't do that walk and not have it affect them in some way.
Right. But how many people do you think want, whether it's Camino or whatever, want a transformative experience? I mean, it happens. We've had it, you've had it, I've had it, transformation, but it comes out of the blue. So transformation is not something, surely, that you book an 800 kilometre walk just for a transformation. So transformation comes as a subconscious part of the entire trip.
Yes. People
absolutely.
say yes. They don't know they're saying yes, but they're saying yes. The minute they decide to do so, a pilgrimage is what's Johnny's definition? It's
Time taken out
time taken out.
of your usual schedule to walk to a place of religious significance.
Yeah.
That's
So
Johnny Walker.
Johnny Walker, yes, our mate. So people give permission I believe, the minute they decide to do it, whether they know it or not, they're giving permission to change. Now, one of the things we know that it might be an unconscious permission, but that's all it takes. Give permission to change, and change will come. And sometimes they don't realize it, what it is. But we have sat with pilgrims throughout the world now who have Camino pilgrims, and some who have been to Jerusalem and other places as well. And they talk openly about the changes that have happened. But the one thing that they're always unsure about is why they did it in the first place. When you ask, now, why did you do it? Why did you go? Why are you here when we're on the Camino? They don't quite have an answer for that one. And that's the interesting thing. So it's some sort of call. And then we have to ask the question, why so many are doing it? So many now.
Well, I wonder if it's a form of escapism from the madness of the chaotic world that we live in right now. I know Camino's been around for a long time, but how many people now are thinking, I just have to get out of this crazy society where people are divided, hate each other, violence, whatever. I want some peace and quiet. I wonder how many people do that.
There's a lot.
But there's things they can do as well. So
yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I mean, these are the things we do talk about constantly with friends and new friends, people we've just met. Why?
Why the Camino? There are some people who do it because they want a cheap holiday. There's some people who do it because they want the social interaction. We know people who walk literally 3, 4, 5 Caminos a year.
Really?
Yeah. Now they're not always.
They're fit.
They are fit.
They're not always the big ones.
The long ones. Sometimes. They're repeat Caminoists. There are a huge number of them out there.
Yeah.
Just do it. And they haven't really got a very good answer as to why they're doing it. They just feel they have to.
They have to.
And we know that the reasons people do things are often in support of what's happening that they haven't as yet seen. So, they're going for someone else that they're going to help or whatever. The repeat Caminos, those who have done it time and time again, know the ropes so well that they're able to help other people. They know if they see someone hurt, where they can seek help, all of those things. So it's fantastic to have them on the trail to help other people.
Yeah.
But, Barry, I think it's a bit of a trap as well, because what you've got with the Camino is you've got what I call a hermetically sealed biosphere, where for that period of time, you don't have all of the day-to-day niggles and worries of your normal life. You don't have the avalanche of emails. You don't have the bills coming in. You don't have
the craziness, the news.
All of these.
Well, that's what I meant about escapism before.
Escapism.
But you see, I think it's a trap, and that is that I've written about this in terms of a cocoon. Being a grub. You start off a grub, and at the end, do you come out a butterfly, or are you still a grub?
Some people say grubby, don't they?
Yeah. And I always think back to Paul Coelho. I don't know whether I pronounced his name correctly, but the writer of The Alchemist. Now, The Alchemist is one of the great spiritual books of all time.
Wonderful book, yeah.
Yeah, sold over 100 million copies worldwide. But he says he could not have written The Alchemist had he not walked the Camino. Now, he wrote, before he wrote The Alchemist, he wrote a book called Pilgrimage, which is about his walking the Camino. So he walked the Camino, and then he wrote The Alchemist. And for me, that says it all, is that the lessons that you learn on the Camino should be, in my view, in some way put into service. Now, he put it into service by writing The Alchemist, which is, not everyone can do that, of course.
No, but you made a film.
Yeah.
And wrote a
That's
book.
what we do, and that's what we do.
Oh,
We try to.
We try to, yeah.
You've done well.
Well, we try to put into service what we've learned. You know, our job as we see it in this lifetime that we have is as communicators.
Mhm.
We're not teachers. Teachers are something else. At no point in all my writing have I ever tried to tell people what to do. What I've tried to do is to tell people what I've done.
True.
And if they get something from that, then fabulous. But if they don't, well, you know,
That's no problem.
But
hopefully
that's up to them, isn't it?
or see a good movie.
That's up to them.
Oh, it's a basket weave of life. There's something for everyone out there.
Yeah, for sure. Now, it brings to my thoughts, as you're walking, if you're with somebody else, okay, fair enough. But if you're on your own, the way you were, there's an old universal saying, what you focus on expands. What do you focus on as you're walking on your own, day in, day out?
Barry, sometimes that I mean, the beauty of the Camino is that it allows you the time to traverse a lot of stuff. I mean, I was in a lot of pain for a long time, and while I was walking, a couple of things. My pain was in my knee principally, but I had pain and blisters and I had shin splints as well, but largely it was in my knee. And so what I thought was this, I thought, and I didn't want to stop, you know, I wanted to complete the walk. And I thought, all right, well, if this pain is in my knee, then it's not going to kill me. You know, if I had pain in my heart, my chest or something like that, then I'd be a little bit more concerned.
Yeah.
But the pain in my knee was not going to hurt me. So I thought, well, where actually is the pain? The pain isn't in my knee, it's actually in my mind. You know, so if I can control the pain in my mind, then I can keep walking and the pain in my knee won't bother me. And so that's what I spent a lot of time trying to do, is to take the pain from my knee into my mind and then rationalize it. That may probably upset a lot of doctors, but
No, but that just reinforces my point. The universal law, what you focus on expands. If you focused on, oh my God, my knee is hurting, I won't even make the place to have a sleep tonight. You had to focus on the positive. You had to focus on what you want and not what you don't want.
yeah, exactly. There is a stretch of the Camino called the Meseta, which is about roughly 200 kilometers, and it's long and it's straight, and it's there are very few towns in between, and it's very challenging to a lot of people. And I define how can I say this? Certainly, my pilgrimage was defined by how I handle the Meseta. What the Meseta does is it takes you into a hypnotic state. It takes you into a trance-like state because you've got the sound of your poles on the ground, tick, 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 as you're walking. You've got the sound of your breathing. I never wore headphones or I never listened to music or anything like that. It was very important that I had the ambient sounds or the inner sounds that I focused on. So you've got those sounds. You can feel your heart, you know, in this rhythmic kind of thing, and you get into this sort of hypnotic state, and you dislocate. You know, your rational mind dislocates, and in that state, all sorts of stuff bubbles up. You know, stuff from the past, regrets that you've had, fears that you've had. The Meseta is extraordinary in that it unseals this sort of crypt, and not a catacomb this time, a crypt. And and all this stuff comes up to the surface, you know, stuff that you hadn't even thought about for decades. Stuff from your childhood, stuff from, you know, things that you've done wrong, things that you have regrets of. And during this period of this very sort of transcendental state, you're able to look at them with clarity and see them for what they are, and that is illusions. And in that state, I kind of I look at it as a crucible, and you put a substance into a crucible and you apply heat to it, and the heat burns off the impurities, and at the end you pour out, what's in that crucible, and you have a more pure substance. And I think the Meseta for me was like that. It was like a crucible, and the heat that was applied was the length of time and the monotony.
Mm-hmm.
The monotony, which in fact turned out to be so incredibly healing.
Yeah. Well, with that hit, did that help you resolve those unresolved issues? So you walk at the end of that, the Meseta, and say, right, all that's the past. Can't change it. Can't do anything about it. Move on from here.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Once
Certainly.
something's seen, you have a chance of resolving it, don't you? Once you understand it's there. But if you don't understand it's functioning deep within you, and sometimes controlling how you're behaving, then you haven't got a chance. You do have to see it. I mean, the reverse of what Bill's just said there, because I've walked a lot with women, and we're not quite as serious as Bill, some of us. We love to chat. And you start talking. And before you know it, someone's talking about something that they've never told anybody. Bubbles up in a different way. It can bubble up that way as well, talking. And that I've experienced always when they tell you something that's really hideous, that's held them back for so long, and you've just walked, 25K, and you're somewhere really beautiful, and we stop, and one of the things that always strikes me is, how can you possibly talk about your life in terms of such victimhood when here we are standing, having just walked day in and day out, and we are here at this most beautiful place in the world. We have nothing to worry about, no cares in the world. Surely we're the heroes of our story, not the victims. And I think that's one of the things that happens when people walk and talk. It's a really, really good thing as well. And I think women are very good at that, at talking. I think men probably not so much, but women are very good at it. And it's a good way to bring up stuff.
So, Jennifer, at the end of your experience there with the women or whatever, were you transformed?
Of course, because, of course, it's always a two-way thing. Every conversation is a reflection of what's going on inside you, too, because we are doing it together. There's three of us, maybe, or it's two or three. Beyond that, someone's always wandered off, who can walk faster, or who wants to stop back behind and is a bit fed up with us talking. But you do learn so much about yourself in that process. That's the thing that I cherish the most, actually, is the communication as opposed to the silence. I'm not so fond of, but when I have to walk on my own, that's fine. I love that.
Well, we've had a wonderful chat, but one final question. Are you a better person now, first of all, Jennifer, than you were before you did the Camino?
Oh, absolutely. Every day, getting better. I'm a better person for having met so many people across the world, and having stood with them and held their hand, and having heard what they care about. I find to be able to do that and find out that we're all the same, no matter where we are, no matter who we are, we all have the same, we all care about our safety of our children. We all care about peace on earth. We all care about the same things. We all care about the planet. These are all the same things that just touch me so much, that we are all the same. We are actually all one. And I've found that through my time that Bill has gifted me with the Camino, but also on this last trip, of most of our time was spent with other people, and whether they're Canadian or Texans or Germans or Hungarians, who are just so emotional. And it's just been an extraordinary gift to me, and I have learnt so much, and it enables me to communicate more directly and more honestly with people without really having any agenda.
Fair enough. Bill?
And that's
what
good.
What about you, Bill?
Have you changed? What have you learnt?
Come on. Where's there, Bill?
Barry, it's I'm fundamentally a different person to the person I was, say, certainly before I walked the Camino.
Yeah.
But it's not a straight line graph. What happened with me, and I think the reason that I have changed so fundamentally, is that the Camino allowed me to make my film on intuition. Making the film on intuition allowed me to make the film on fear. Making the film on fear allowed me to make the film on the Camino.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of work, of discovering that the way I thought the world worked wasn't the way the world actually worked. That has been the key that has unlocked these changes within me. I mean, when it comes down to it, Barry, and I think this is one of the things that is probably holding a lot of us back, and that is that you've got to keep an open mind.
Mm.
One of the most important things for me was that I realized that it was only four generations ago that science discovered germs. Now, I've taken science to be inviolate, that science is how the world works. But if it was only four generations ago that science discovered germs, then what does that say about science?
Mm-hmm.
And the sages and the rishis and the mystics have sorted this stuff out millennia ago. And so if you start to go back to the mystics, if you start to go back to the sages, and you look at what they've said and you keep an open mind, then suddenly your whole world can change.
Yeah. I think that's a wonderful summary. I'm sitting here mesmerized by your words there, Bill, and yours too, Jennifer. And you've had a fantastic experience all the way, not only the film, not only the wonderful time we've had in the last few months, but overall, it definitely has changed you. And I think that's what so many people want, whether they know it or not. I think you are an inspiration, both of you. And thank you so much.
Thank you,
That's
Barry.
very kind of you, Barry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill and Jennifer, two wonderful people, great filmmakers, and The Way My Way is playing in cinemas around the world and also available on Netflix. Thanks for your company. See you next time on Radio Out There.